Chapter 16. Lying Low. When they compared notes later, each of them felt as though they had blinked and the scenery before them had changed, from the underground lair to the roadway between the mine buildings. The light of the now setting sun was eye-achingly bright. Ron ran forwards and searched in the weeds where their hooded captors had discarded their wands. He found his and Draco's in moments, and Harry and Granville's soon after. "Grim old place next," Ron panted, joining the group again. Once again, in less than the blink of an eye, the scene around them changed to the entrance hall of 12 Grimold Place. "Harry? Harry!" Ginny ran up into the hall from the kitchen and flung herself at Harry, her arms around his neck. "What the hell, Harry?" she said. "Seamus sent me a Patronus at Mum's to say that something was going on, but not to worry." "So you worried," Harry deduced. "I was out of my mind, of course," she confirmed. "What happened?" "I got captured, transported hundreds of miles, sealed in an egg miles underground, sacrificed for some magic ritual or something. Well, almost. Then this lot came to save me. Got captured and trapped underground. And Lydia had to save us all by becoming a witch." A blazing look passed between them. Then Ginny visibly relaxed. "Well, you're home now. Don't do it again." "I'm a witch now, aren't I?" Lydia crowed. "Indeed you are," said her uncle. "I did actual magic. I got us out and I brought us all here." "Let no one try to deny it," Ambrose smiled. "You are a witch and our saviour." Lydia became serious. "Mum's going to freak out, isn't she?" "Other families manage," Harry said. "Mine didn't take it well, as you know, but Hermione's were proud of her." Lydia thought for a while. "I can't tell my friends, can I?" "Absolutely not," said Harry. "Never," Ron confirmed. "It sounds like there's a story I need to hear," Ginny said. "While you do that, I imagine you want something to eat." Ambrose led the chorus of agreement. They adjourned to the kitchen. While Ginny prepared dinner, the rest of them told her what had happened since their trip to Caramore. Draco broached the painful subject of his father's involvement. "Oh, Draco, I'm so sorry," Ginny commiserated. "From what Harry has told me, you've done so well trying to put the past behind you." Draco gave Harry a small but grateful nod. "And he left me, us all, to die. What a—" There was a knock at the front door. A look passed between Harry and Ginny. "We're not here, and you've no idea where we might be," said Harry. "Unless it's Kingsley." "You start serving up, I'll see who it is," Ginny directed. She left, shutting the kitchen door and concealing her wand behind her back. In the kitchen, they heard a brief exchange of muted voices. Moments later, Ginny opened the door into the kitchen a crack and put her head around the corner. "Not Kingsley, but I think there's one other exception we can make." Ginny opened the door wide. Hermione was beside her. Ron leapt to his feet and almost knocked a chair flying as he ran around the table. They flung their arms around each other. "The kids?" he asked. "At Grandma Molly's with Harry and Ginny's." "Dad'll be in his element," Ron grinned. "Yes, he was rolling around the floor with them when I left," she smiled. "Now I think there's a story here I need to hear all about. Then I'll tell you what I found out." Hermione's eyes flicked towards Draco, then back again. They settled down at the table, and over dinner recounted the story for Hermione. When they told her Lucius had been involved, she let out a heavy sigh. "I had a suspicion he might be," she admitted. "I didn't know how I was going to raise it. I'm so sorry, Draco." A thin-lipped Draco waved it away, but said nothing. Hermione was delighted to hear that Lydia had become a witch, but immediately became serious again. "This amulet is terrible news, Harry," she said. "It's bad enough that they're planning to make it look as though they're turning muggles into witches and wizards. If they can actually do it." "Well, we have the amulet, and as far as we know, the secrets of the rituals died with Granville. The only remaining instructions are in the grimoire, which we also have," Harry informed her. Ambrose cleared his throat. It appears it might not be quite so simple, I'm afraid, he apologised. Granville was being fed information by this Aloria person. I do not know if he fed back his findings or his translations to her, but certainly all the source information he had, she also seems to have had. And do not forget the allusion to another token, amulet or otherwise, which Aloria may have made based on Granville's willing though unwitting sacrifice. We cannot assume we are, by any means, out of the woods. Not until Granville's amulet and grimoire are safe, and her token and copy of the grimoire are, shall we say, neutralised? By neutralised, you mean destroyed, Harry said. It is hardly my place to decide, Head Aura, Ambrose shrugged. But if I were asked, that would be my recommendation. Similarly for making the amulet and our grimoire safe. A thoughtful gloom settled over the table. Ginny waved her wand to clear the dishes into the sink. I'm not a problem, am I? Lydia asked in a tiny voice. Not at all, said Hermione. You're like any other muggle-born. If you're a problem, then so am I. Give her a chance, poor kid, Ron joked. Being the solitary muggle, it is more likely that I am the problematic one, Ambrose pointed out. For a change. You're not, Ambrose, said Harry. You've been a great help. What's more important now is what we do next. It feels to me like there might not be a lot of time left. We need to play dead, Ron advised. I need to get back to work, Draco protested. On top of that, everything I know of which might help us is at Hogwarts, apart from the few things I have with me. Harry shook his head. We will have to do without them, and Hogwarts will have to do without you. You wouldn't be back teaching if you were dead, would you? Ron made a cough which sounded much like Professor Binns. Harry's right, Hermione agreed. Ginny and I should start looking worried, but we can get out and do any legwork you need. We should let Kingsley know what's going on, Harry said. No, said Lydia. She frowned. Sorry, I don't know why, but I've got a feeling we shouldn't. She's right, though, said Ron. We've seen before how the Ministry can be infiltrated. It would be safer if we didn't let anyone outside this room know we're still alive. Harry pursed his lips and moved the salt cellar, which he must have thought needed a change of scenery. It's not about trusting Kingsley, Harry, Ron explained. It's about knowing who that's close to him might find out, and who they might tell. Just for now, Harry. Harry drew himself up and sighed. Okay, just for now. Well, we know Lucius Malfoy's involved, Ron said. Welbeck, said Draco. Petrarch Welbeck. He was one of those who captured us. He was a cousin of Yaxley. I think he's related to Mulciber as well. I didn't recognise the other one. Do you know what Welbeck does, where he works, Draco? Harry asked. Draco shook his head. I get the impression he's some kind of hired thug. I don't think he has a proper job. Maybe if more of them had had the opportunity to get proper jobs, they wouldn't be causing problems again, Hermione suggested. Ron raised his eyebrows, but said nothing. Bit late to be sending them careers advice now, Harry noted. Hermione scowled. Did Granville say anything that might help us, Ambrose? Ron asked, steering the conversation onto a more helpful path. Alas, no, Ambrose sighed. The poor lad had a lot to comprehend, and was more concerned with his getting us out of there alive. Did you know him well, Ambrose? Hermione coaxed. I knew the family from when he was small. I used to show him slides of tiny insects and the like under my microscope. We would look in the garden together for new things from which to make slides. But his mother's untimely death hit his father hard. He drew his son to him and seldom let him out. I suspect, it saddens me to say, that his father had no idea how to relate to him. Granville became infamously odd and withdrawn. I imagine if he had someone suppressing his magical abilities, as Mr. Malfoy Sr. intimated, that would hardly have helped. I used to be scared of him, Lydia admitted. We need to find a way to track down Lucius and Welbeck, Harry insisted. Who do we know who's dodgy enough to have the right contacts? but we can trust enough not to give us away. Ron gazed up at the ceiling. Draco frowned and bowed his head. Harry pursed his lips. He rested his elbow on the table and his forehead on his hand. Or, Ginny suggested, who do we know who has the skills to snoop around, contacts who are always investigating, and is your greatest fan, Harry Potter? Harry looked at her blankly. Someone in the Aura's office? He shrugged. But we've already said the Ministry could be infiltrated. Me, you half-baked lemon, she blurted out. Who the heck did you think I meant by your greatest fan? But investigating? Harry countered. Investigative journalists, as they are known, Ambrose clarified. The newspaper you work for, Lydia cried. Of course. If you don't think some of my colleagues have dodgy contacts, then you haven't been paying attention, Aura Potter, Ginny said, then muttered. What a surprise that would be. But skills, we said, Ron protested. You know Rita Skeeter was an animagus. Petra Parker is better at disillusionment than anyone I know, and at least one of our staff is a gifted potioneer, with a handy stock of illegal polyjuice and veritaserum. Every one of them has contacts with a sketchy respect for the law. I'm not sure I want to be hearing this, Harry said. What about you, sis? Any dodgy contacts in the Quidditch world? Ron asked, grinning. Shut up, Ron, she advised with a smile. Harry was grinning as well. You're my greatest fan. Ginny smiled at him. Idiot, she observed, shaking her head with disbelief. Can I help you? Hermione asked. No offence, Hermione, but after Harry, you're the person most likely to make dodgy contracts run a mile, Ginny explained. What about me? Ron protested. Ginny gave him a withering look. They can hardly run a mile when they're laughing, Ronald. I might be able to help point your friends in the right direction, Draco ventured. I've tried to distance myself from all that, but I could draw up a list of shady characters I've seen my father with in the past. Thanks, Draco, said Harry. Lydia whispered to her uncle. Would it be at all possible for someone to contact Lydia's mother to prevent her worrying? Ambrose asked. She was supposed to be with me for a few days. It is, I believe, Thursday night? Catherine will be due to pick Lydia up tomorrow. Harry regarded Lydia bleakly for a moment. Sorry, we can't risk anyone finding out we're still alive. Oh, come on, Harry, Hermione interjected. I can go to see her. It's what I would do if we thought you'd all gone missing. That's not going to make anyone suspicious. Oh, said Harry. Of course, I wasn't thinking. You were, she corrected him. But you were thinking about secrecy and security. It's your job. But it's not always the only answer. Harry looked at Ron. I've no idea where she gets these weird notions, Ron protested. Okay, said Harry. In the morning, Ginny will start getting her colleagues to track down these, well, Death Eaters, I'll call them for now. Hermione will contact Lydia's mum and let her know you're fine, and we will sit here and twiddle our thumbs. I have the grimoire to investigate, said Draco. I can help you with that when I get back, Hermione volunteered. Ron glowered at her but said nothing. I should be eternally grateful, Ambrose said, if you two highly trained auras could coach Lydia on how to live with and what to expect from being magical. It seems to me that one day she will be attending Hogwarts, and it would be best to continue with the pretense of her being Muggle-born. Will I really be going to Hogwarts? Lydia squeaked. Of course, said Draco. No better place for a young witch such as yourself. Lydia grinned. I'm a witch. I have always thought of you that way, Ambrose assured her. Watch yourself, Uncle, she retaliated. I might turn you into a toad. Of course, Harry pointed out, you can't use magic properly until you have a wand. And even then, you can't use it except when you're at school. That raises a question, Hermione noted. Will Lydia have the trace on her yet? I know young people are detected when they're growing up, but Lydia might be different. Could you find out? Ron asked Hermione. I wouldn't try, Harry warned. It might tip off the Death Eaters about Lydia. Harry, if there are already rumours about Muggles being turned into wizards, then it's a legitimate question to ask, Hermione countered. How legitimate is it to put innocent people's lives at risk? Harry argued. Raising the question might alert the Death Eaters to look at what the Trace can tell the Ministry about their fake converts. Once they're interested, they might look and find out about Lydia. They might do that anyway, she said. They might, but you won't be responsible for it, Harry said. But Harry, she began. Drop it, Hermione, Ron interrupted. It isn't helpful. And it seems to me, if they've been swooping in on young witches and wizards for their plans, they must have someone in the improper use office who has access to the Trace. The others were stunned by the implications of this. An uneasy silence fell. I would be more comfortable if you did not risk raising the subject for now, Ambrose said. Ron is quite right. And I believe, Hermione, after you have talked to Lydia's mother, you may agree. Hermione looked at him, then at Lydia. She blinked a couple of times, then nodded. Sorry, Ron, Harry. You're right, she admitted. Thank you all, Ambrose smiled. With your permission, I imagine Lydia would like to freshen herself and retire for the evening. Indeed, I would not be averse to an early night myself. It has been a remarkable day, replete with adventitious happenstance. All eyes turned to Ambrose. Full of unplanned events, he translated. A murmur of agreement came from the others. The following morning, Hermione and Ginny left shortly after breakfast. Don't go solving the whole case without us, Harry warned them both with a smile. We'll try to leave a few Death Eaters for you, Ginny said. I mean, we do have our own jobs to do as well. We'll be careful not to stir up the wrong kind of attention, Hermione added, looking at Ron. Ron nodded and smiled back at her. And if you could tidy up the house and have dinner ready for us tonight, boys, Ginny added, that would be a bloody miracle, Ron finished. Don't let him wreck the house, Harry, she said in parting. And remember, we're all missing and you're distraught, Ron reminded them. They were both laughing as they disapparated. I would surmise that this means you are in charge now, Lydia dear, Ambrose noted with a wry smile. The next few days in the house passed agonizingly slowly for them. Ron and Harry tried to give Lydia a thorough grounding in what her childhood might have been like, growing up with an increasing awareness of her magical abilities. Lydia was an attentive and inquisitive learner. Ambrose started out by sitting in on their talks, but increasingly drifted away to talk to Draco or to read books he found around the house. Draco, meanwhile, was poring over his books and the grimoire most of the time. In the evenings, the ladies would return with stories of what they were doing. Hermione had visited Lydia's mother and spent the whole day explaining the wizarding world and what it would mean for Lydia to be joining it. She had omitted any mention of the difficulties and dangers Lydia and Ambrose had already faced. Catherine had eventually been fine with it all. Lydia believed that magic must have been involved. Ambrose assured her that her mother was brighter than she yet knew. Ginny told them how one of her colleagues, the potioneer she had mentioned, was delighted to be able to do anything he could to help catch Death Eaters. Harry was keen to know who he was. Ginny was reluctant to say and chided Harry for trying to expose her informants. Harry kept up the pressure 3 nights in a row, assisted by Ron. In the end, she relented. If you must know, it's Dennis, she eventually snapped. Dennis Creevy? Harry frowned. Yes, now you can understand why I didn't want to say. Who's Dennis Creevy? Lydia asked. Harry sighed deeply and ran his fingers through his tangle of hair. Ginny moved to sit close to him. Dennis was at school with us, Harry began. He was a Gryffindor and a few years below us. Actually, he was the youngest member of Dumbledore's army that I told you about. Lydia nodded. The rest were silent. He had a brother called Colin, who was 2 years above him. They were Muggle-born. It's unusual to find 2 in the same family. I always got the impression that they were particularly close. The best of friends. Harry glanced towards Ron. Almost like twins in some ways. When Voldemort came to power, they had to go on the run, of course. But when the Battle of Hogwarts started, Neville used the DA coins to send out a call to arms. Colin and Dennis were both underage, but Colin turned up for the fight. He wouldn't let Dennis go with him. Their mum, Rose, told me afterwards that Colin didn't want to risk her losing both of her sons. Harry stopped for a moment and bit his lip. Anyway, Colin fought in the battle and was killed. I found out later he'd done amazingly well, taking out loads of Voldemort's men before they got him. I saw Neville and Oliver Wood, my former Quidditch captain, carrying Colin's body to the Great Hall. He seemed so small and so young, like he was when I first met him, when he was a first year. Harry stopped again and looked up at them all. That image of Colin lying there haunted my dreams for years. It still does at times. Dennis seemed to think that he could have helped if he'd been there, which is nonsense, of course, but still. Colin loved to take photos. Harry smiled. He used to be a bit of a pest with it all. Ron chuckled and nodded. Hermione held Ron's hand. Dennis told me Colin would have been a reporter if he'd, survived. Dennis could have been an Auror. He got excellent grades, but he wanted to become a reporter for Colin. I think you can see why Dennis would be keen to help against the Death Eaters. Ambrose nodded in agreement. Lydia sniffed and rubbed her eyes. I hope Dennis can manage, Harry mused.